Lee Kantor here, another episode of Coach the Coach Radio, and this is going to be a good one. Today we have with us Steve Smith with GrowthSource Coaching. Welcome, Steve.
Lee, thanks for having me on. It's great to be here.
Why do you think it is that change is so hard, and are there anything you've learned that can help people kind of manage their way through it?
Yeah, change is difficult for the most part because it creates a feeling of unknown. You know, I may not like the way I'm living. I may not like the way I'm performing or the outcome that I'm getting, but it's a known quantity. I know that every day when I get up and do my typical routine, I'm comfortable with that because that's what I've always done. If I change that routine, I don't know what I'm going to get. And unfortunately, we as human beings tend to go negative more than positive. So any introduction of change in your behavior, in your thinking, in your ideology, what you believe in, which drives much of what you do, any change like that, people immediately think, okay, if I change it, I'm going to lose something. Something's going to happen. I'm going to be in some kind of a setback position. So rather than do that and risk losing, I'll just live with the devil I know.
And then when you live with the devil you know, that's good for a second, but change is everywhere every day. Like there's no, you can't
right.
You can't eliminate change. Like that's just part of the deal.
That's right. And so typically one of two things happens. And I'm a big proponent of the 80-20 rule. Okay. So in most cases, 20% of the population or people in business will see change as an opportunity to improve, to gain, to create, and to be more successful. The other 80% will see it as a loss. You know, if I change, something's going to happen. So with those folks, what you basically have to do is help them understand what they're losing now by not doing anything. Because if you're in a situation where you're not getting what you want or things are not working the way you think they should be, and you're not changing, you're losing. You may not realize it, but staying pat causes you to lose. And sometimes when you get people to realize that, and there's methods to do this, but what I've realized is most of the time, people, like you probably had this situation before where you know somebody, they're a personal friend, there's somebody in business, and you see them doing certain things over and over again. They might even tell you, you know, Lee, I can't figure out why this doesn't work. And you walk away thinking, I see why it doesn't work. They're doing X, they're getting Y. That's the problem. It's hooked to what they're doing or what they're thinking or how they're interacting. The way you get people out of that is by putting them in that third party view, getting them to be able to see in themselves what people around them are seeing. And once they do that, you'd be amazed at how their vision changes. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, okay, I see what you're talking about. People could have been telling them that for years, and it doesn't sink in. But when you change the viewpoint, you get people to look at themselves differently. All of a sudden, those internal thoughts about protecting yourself, protecting your integrity, your value, your self-worth, tend to get put on the sideline because you're just looking at it the way everybody else does. And so when you get them to that point, now they're a little more receptive to saying, okay, I understand what I'm doing that's not serving me well. Let's talk about what I need to change or do differently in order to get a better outcome.
But everybody has those kind of blind spots, and they're obvious when someone points them out. But most people have these loops that they just kind of go through on autopilot that they don't even see that. So it takes a coach or somebody from, like you said, a third party to give them a different perspective a lot of times.
Yes. And one of the things, and again, this is not something that I invented. This is something that most all coaches that are really good at what they do just recognize. You and a lot of other people, I know at least one time in your life have had this experience. You can talk to someone and they can, be muttering on about some problem that they can't fix or something that's just causing them, pain and suffering. And you might just throw out the answer, give them some advice, say, hey, why don't you do this or that? Well, if they're not in a position of being ready to hear that and really take it in and think about it, first thing they're going to do is dismiss it. And they'll come up with all kind of excuses or other things, other underlying things they haven't shared yet as a reason for dismissing why that idea is going to work. But yet, if you ask people enough questions to get them to think deeper about the situation they're in and things they've thought about, and they come up with a solution, now they own it. People will own what they create. People don't necessarily want to take ownership for stuff other people give them.
Right. So that kind of self-authorship and helping them kind of self-discover the answer is the objective. But sometimes people just aren't ready, or they're not willing to pay the price. They don't want that trade-off, whatever that trade-off is going to be from the old way to the new way.
Yes, they do. And that's one of the chief reasons why in my business, which I've had now for 13 years, I do almost no selling. Okay. I market a lot of what I have. I give away an incredible amount of information for free because I've realized that getting people to a point where they recognize something has to change and they need to get help from the outside to do that is a timeline. And if you hit somebody at the wrong point, all of your stuff is falling on deaf ears. You've got to almost kind of tease them up a little bit and keep showing them the way until they decide to put their hands on the steering wheel. When they're at that point, now you have somebody you can work with. But up until that point, you've got somebody that's basically uncoachable.
All right. Well, thank you again for sharing your story. You're doing important work, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, Lee. I appreciate being on.
All right. This is Lee Kantor. We'll see you next time on Coach the Coach Radio.